Good evening, parents, particularly if this is your first experience of ESF or West Island School, and a very warm welcome to you all. I am Guy Hewson, the Director of Learning Pre-16 with responsibility for leading the transition programme and overseeing the students in years 7 to 11. This is the second webinar to support the transition of your children to West Island. The first one last week was about English for academic purposes, which I hope if you attended you found useful. And I'm sure that this evening the information being shared will also be helpful to support your own understanding of the IN or individual needs function of our school and how they will help support your child. This evening, it's not only about what the IN department does, but it will also provide you with practical suggestions to support your child prepare to join WIS after the summer and beyond as they settle into life in a busy secondary school. I'd like to welcome all of our panellists who can introduce themselves to you this evening. Dr. Wright, maybe you could introduce yourself.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. I'm Gail Wright. I've been at West Island School for about 13 years as head of individual needs. In fact, 13 years ago, I started the learning support provision for levels of adjustment 3, 4, and I look forward to meeting all of you.
Great. And Miss Neville?
Hi, I'm Shelby Neville, and I am second in charge of the individual needs department. This is technically my first year at a full-time year at West Island School, and I look forward to meeting each and every one of you soon.
Great, thank you. And Miss Burrows?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. I am going to be your son or daughter's head of year in August, and we really enjoy meeting them for over the transition days. And of course, on June the 2nd, we'll all be together, and hopefully I'll get to meet you in person for the evening information. But I'm sure you'll find this evening very useful.
Great, thanks, Jules. And for parents, I'll talk a little bit about the 2nd of June event at the end of this evening. Whilst we go through the presentation, which Dr. Wright will lead, you will notice at the bottom of the screen there is a Q&A button where at the end of the presentation we will open up any questions that you might have. So if I could maybe encourage you to leave your questions until the end, as I'm sure that some of these questions you may have answered during the presentation. But I'll let Miss Burrows and Miss Neville turn their cameras off, and Dr. Wright for you to open up your presentation, and I'll see you at the end. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Guy, and good evening to everyone, and welcome to West Island School. I'd like to start off with this image of adaptability, the chameleon, who has the ability or willingness to change in order to suit different conditions, situations, and environments. The chameleon is a sign of comfortable change, one who connects easily and allows it to adapt to the environment. Thus, today's presentation is about adaptability, the simple secret to success, to understand ways to work together to help your child adapt to their new environment. Who are we and what is our role? There are 5 teachers and 7 full-time or part-time education assistants who work in partnership with teachers, parents, and other external agencies to support your child. As a school-based, problem-solving team, our role is to identify, support, provide, and deliver additional expertise and resources to enable students to achieve their goals and experience success. The ESF and West Island School's vision is for every learner to be the best they can be. At West Island School, we strive to help all students realize their full potential and provide an inclusive education for students who have a wide range of abilities. So what are some of the things that students need to adapt to? Here are some of the questions that are normally asked and which also may resonate with you. Will my child make friends? There are many, many opportunities to connect through the tutor group, dynasty, inter-dynasty events, and during lessons. How will my child manage with the academic expectations? It's a gradual increase of demands and expectations, which is guided. There is more flexibility in pursuing different pathways and supports. How can I help with keeping my child organized? I'm going to be talking a little bit more about the tips. How will my child cope with so many different teachers? Being exposed to different teachers mirror working with different people later on, and it's a really great life skill. What is the role of the tutor and head of year? We have an extremely strong pastoral system, which Guy will outline in his talk. How can I find out more information about what my child is doing? I'm going to go through some different navigational sites for you. And lastly, how does the support work in secondary school? And this leads very nicely into the focus of this webinar. Moving up to secondary school is a time of many changes, which coincides with developmental changes in adolescence. Your child will go from an environment that is familiar, such as they know the location of all their classrooms, they have knowledge of the teachers, they understand expectations, and they have the relationship with their main class teacher, just to name a few. Then they go to the unfamiliar and become the youngest in the school, such as finding their way around a very different site, using lockers to store their belongings, connecting with their tutor, enhancing their self-management skills, and learning about different subjects. It also coincides with social emotional changes, such as exploring different ways to manage emotions, relating to increased demands and connections with others. There is a sense of identity and how they view themselves, and an increase in peer group influences where there is a focus on relationships and a sense of belonging. There are also physical changes. To understand their physical growth and acknowledging variations amongst individuals. They will also go through cognitive changes, and there's a shift beyond the limitations of concrete mental operations to abstract, intangible thinking. And at last but not least, independence. There is a gradual change from a dependency on parents towards being independent and taking on more responsibility. How can we work together to support your child to be the best they can be? We have an identification system that helps to target support and it's based on the ESF's levels of adjustment. There are 5 dimensions of schooling, which is a framework for identifying, documenting the need of adjustments and accommodations for students, such as thinking and learning, social communication, speech and language, social and emotional well-being, and sensory processing, motor coordination, and physical. There are also 6 levels within these 5 dimensions. So level 1 tends to be less extensive. It requires class-based teaching and learning adjustments, and it's catered for within mainstream classes. Level 2 is regular, individualized teaching and learning adjustments of objectives, outcomes, materials, or equipment. And for us at West Island School, we have the Strategies for School, or S4S, intervention program, which is a form of regular intervention. And I'll talk a little bit more about it later. Level 3 and 4 is where students require more extensive daily teaching and learning adjustments. These can range from ongoing, continuous, to individualized adjustments. And levels of adjustment 5 and 6 is the special school provision, which is at the Jockey Club Sarah Rose School on Kowloon side. It caters for students with profound and complex learning needs. How does the individual needs provision look like? And what does it look like and what entails? Here is a summary of the provision that we offer. We have the Strategies for School program, the S4S, and we have learning support. At level 1, students generally require few adjustments which are implemented by the subject teachers and are monitored accordingly. Strategies and information are shared. Differentiation is done by the subject teachers. There may be some in-class support. Level 2 is our S4S intervention program. And we provide literacy, numeracy, and any individual skills that are needed. There may be transitional programs such as small group teaching of particular subjects, such as English and individual societies, and more in-class support. At level adjustment 3, 4, it's everything that's in level adjustment 2 plus an increase in the level of support that is ongoing and individualized. Further down the line, students may require a combination of mainstream provision and modified pathways. What does support look like as my child goes through the school? This gives you an overview of how the support is framed at different year groups. During the discussions with primary schools and or with parents who are from schools outside of the ESF, a recommendation of S4S is made to provide an extra layer of support so that learners can be the best they can be. In years 7 to 8, the S4S intervention is timetabled against a second language, so that your child would take one language and can choose from either Chinese, French, or Spanish. And then in the other second language, they would do the S4S. In year 9, the S4S is timetabled against project-based learning. And all the students take one language. In years 10 and 11, students choose S4S as one of the subject options. And it's non-exam based. In years 12 and 13, this is timetabled against students' freeze where possible. So what does a S4S look like in year 7? There are 3 lessons in our 7-day cycle for S4S. One session is devoted to an English focus. We liaise with the head of English so that what we provide is mirrored in the mainstream lesson. And this is fundamentally to reinforce foundational skills such as parts of speech, types of sentences, paragraphing, analysis of text. figurative language, and different forms of text such as narrative, descriptive, persuasive. And another session is a math focus, and if required, or they do double English focus. And if the students need a math focus, we use the session to reinforce the number systems, geometry, coordinates, angles, algebra, area, perimeter, data handling, just to name a few topics. And then third session is an individual focus, which is bespoke for each student. This could be spelling, handwriting, reading fluency, nonverbal skills, social skills, just to name a few. After reviewing all of the collected information, we also allocate exam access arrangements to students on the individual needs register, whether they are at level adjustment 1, 2, 3, or 4. In year 7 to 9, these are internally allocated and administered. So whenever your child has an exam, if they have exam access arrangements such as extra time, then whenever they have an assessment, they will be awarded this. In years 10 to 13, we assess students formally to determine their eligibility. If so, we apply to the UK and the IB exam boards. We also help with the US's PSAT and SAT exam accommodations. So this could range extra time, the use of the word processor, separate room, small group invigilation, breaks, the use of color paper, prompting reader scribe. And when we apply formally to the UK and IB exam boards, we tend to supplement with school evidence and medical or psychological reports. Here is a question that's asked quite a lot. How can I help my child to be more organized? One of the things that you can do is to organize plastic wallet for each subject to hold all loose bits of paper, notebook, reading book, calculator. And it's always a really good idea just to keep everything together. And I also suggest a pencil or pen in each wallet if there's a tendency to misplace it. Put up a wall calendar at home to help with managing deadlines and upcoming events such as non-uniform days, PE, after-school activities. By doing so, it reduces the cognitive load of trying to remember things. And it's also really important to check equipment, such as pencil case with pens, pencils, ruler, erasers, highlighter, color pencils, glue sticks, calculator. It's useful to check that the pencil case is fully loaded each week. Ensure that the pencil case isn't too full to prevent easy zipping. I would, however, suggest 2 pencil cases, one for home use and one for school to reduce the chances of not having the right equipment for learning in school. Get a planner to know any important information or use sticky notes on the computer to act as a reminder. Make a note of PE days. It's useful to have a physical timetable at home on the wall or on the door to remind your child of when these days are. Label all equipment, as all PE shorts, shirts, shoes look the same. Reduce lateness. Set an alarm on a watch to help with managing time. And remember messages and reply slips. Keep them in a plastic wallet or use a Post-it on the computer or phone as a reminder to take them to the main office. It's also important that your child gets into a routine of charging the laptop daily. It's also really important to establish who owns a laptop. As you have purchased a laptop, you can set the parameters and rules. By doing so, it will alleviate any difficult conversations around when to turn it off, what games or apps to load, where to store the laptop at night, and how much computer time, so that you can set those rules and parameters. Bring a water bottle to hydrate throughout the day. And lastly, bring a number combination padlock to reduce losing the key. How to set up routines at home? Every evening, I would suggest get into routine to check emails, check the wisdom for homework, organize homework time, pack their bag the night before so that not really scrambling in the morning, charge a laptop, and agree on a time to close all electronics. I would recommend leaving all devices away from where your child sleeps. It would be useful to set up a specific study area in your home, away from distractions with no phones. A copy of the timetable is useful to help with planning. It's useful to have a separate pencil case at home. If possible, the surface to work on should have access to a plug for the laptop, or shelves or drawers to store books. And these are really fantastic skills to embed, especially in year 7, so that it becomes second nature when they're in year 10, 11, 12, and 13, when the demands of the curriculum becomes much greater. Now, what are some revision strategies that my child can use? I would suggest flashcards for new vocabulary or terms, especially in the languages or science. And the flashcards are great for making short notes. I would also suggest highlighting keywords to draw attention to its importance, understanding command words to help with answering specific information, using diagrams or charts to organize information for those who are visually minded, and review questions, especially in maths. How to find information about my child's learning. These are different navigational forums, which you will be learning more about later. But just to give you a snapshot, we have the school website, which offers an overview. We also have a wisdom, which provides information about the timetable, about the menu in the canteen. We have the school day 1 to 7 and homework information. There's also the email system, and the data hub provides information about various things such as credits. We have the CAS, which is our holistic education that provides creative action and service opportunities. We have also the Google Classroom, which has information resources that your child needs to complete tasks. Now, how to build a successful partnership between the home and school? Keep the channel of communication open and share information about your child's learning and what we need to know. Your child will experience a diverse range of subjects and experiences. Some will be completely new, so your child may need to make more adjustments to the newness, and in doing so may find some of the lessons a little bit challenging. And that's okay, as it takes time. Our shared goals. I made some new friends. I'm learning new skills. I'm involved in different activities I've never tried before, and I'm learning lots of skills. I'm feeling I can keep up with the homework and can get help if I need it. And I know where to go for help as well. I'm feeling organized and in control of what's happening. And most of all, I know my way around school. So this brings us back to adaptability, the simple secret to success. I really hope this webinar has helped you to understand the role of individual needs and how we can work together to help a child adapt to the new environment. Thank you very much for your support, and I really appreciate you making the time after a very long day. If you have any questions that are specific to your child, please get in touch with me. And at this stage, I would like to open the floor to questions.
Great, that was really clear, Gail. Thank you very much for sharing that. So parents, if you want to ask a question, there is the Q&A button at the bottom for you to click on, and we will answer those questions in the order that they are received. Gail, the first question that a parent asked is there any cost for receiving the individual needs support?
None at all, none whatsoever. We have 5 very experienced specialist teachers. We have a team of education assistants who offer support in the mainstream. And just to give you an overview of what kind of support we're providing. At the moment, the year 11s are currently preparing for the GCSEs. And so we have a number of students coming in on a daily basis to receive support from either the specialist teachers or education assistants, because they're the ones who are in the classes with the support with the students. And so they know what they should be learning, how should they be learning, and they have a really great idea about how the students are getting on in lessons. Now, Guy, there was a question that came up earlier. One of the parents asked about support for ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
Is this a good time for me to just go through it?
Yeah, yes, please.
Okay. So having a diagnosis of ADHD, it depends on the combination. So it could be inattention, hyperactivity, impulsivity, or just combine of the 3. But generally, the underlying stretch would be executive functioning. So this affects the ability to shift and be flexible, their ability to control their emotions, to initiate tasks immediately, affects the working memory, affects the organization, prioritizing, planning, and self-monitoring. And so this is an area that is our expertise as well. And so we have a range of different strategies to offer the students. Too many to discuss at this stage, but quite a lot. So if parents who are interested in this and would like to know more, they should contact me.
Great, and that kind of leads me on to a parent question. If they think that their child needs some IN support, Gail, how do they go about kind of understanding if that is a possibility, and should they register to receive some support in some way? Should they register their child?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. Thank you very much for asking that. At the onset, we have had a lot of conversations with the primary schools or with the parents if they're from outside of ESF at the time of admissions, for instance. And so that information forms how West Island School can provide for their child. So that could be at level 1, where I provide information to the class teacher, the subject teachers, and they do differentiation. It could be dropping one language and taking up S for S, where they receive 3 sessions of intervention in a 7-day cycle. For students who've come through the system, who've not had any individual needs, however, during the course of being at West Island School, there's some things that come up that may need further investigation. So should contact the tutor. The tutor will contact the head of year, who will put in an internal referral to my department, where we would investigate a little bit more. We would do an observation. We would have a chat with your child just to find out a little bit more. And we may do some assessments should it be necessary, because it really depends largely on what that concern is.
Great, thanks, Gail. And another question I think we've been asked in previous years is, can parents whose children are being supported by the IN department, is there any opportunities for parents to talk to other parents to maybe share strategies or share experiences? Is that something that we can facilitate in some way?
We can, and that's something that is easily done, and we have done in the past. However, I'm also very aware that a lot of the students are not comfortable making it very public. They may come to the class for S4S and within a small group, so it could be 5, it could be 10 in a group for S4S, that they're comfortable within that class of sharing their joys, their struggles openly. However, I'm very aware in secondary school with adolescents, and I talked about identity, that we have to be very aware of where they're coming from. And so in thinking that, sometimes the parents are not as open with talking about their child's learning needs. However, I'm very open to restarting something like that. Perhaps we can have a coffee morning and invite parents to come in and just to have a chat with the specialists at the school, and also to meet other parents as well.
Great, some really good suggestions there. And then just going back to the ADHD aspect, Gail, if a student maybe it's the parents feel that they don't necessarily need much additional support, will you be assessing them in some way as to whether they require some intervention, or how would that work in your department?
If the students, through our contacts with primary school or through admissions, we feel that they're mainly at monitoring or level 1, then we will continue monitoring. And then we always have a link individual needs teacher with different year groups. So this year, Shelby's linked with the year 7. So she's been liaising with the head of year 7. And I'm linked with the year 11, so I liaise with the head of year 11s. And so through these meetings, we find out a little bit more about how the students are getting on. If we need to get the parents in to talk a little bit more about perhaps taking up S4S, dropping one of the languages to take up S4S, then we will do so. By the same token, we have had students who started off with S4S, and by term 3, they don't really need it, and so they don't need to do it in year 8. We also look at our data, the baseline data, which is the MIDGIS, and we will monitor, we collect comments from the subject teachers as well. So it's quite a thorough, comprehensive process, so that when we have to make, I guess, when we have to communicate with parents, that we have information at hand.
Great, thanks very much, Gail. And I'm not sure if this is related specifically to the IN department, so Vivian, apologies if I've slightly misinterpreted this question, but when the students are completing maths and English support, will they be at the same level, or how will that work? Because I know that within the mainstream, there are different maths levels, for example, but in English classes there aren't. But does that transfer to the support that students get through IN?
Yes, no, it's a really good question. So in year 7 and 8, because we also understand that with the 3 years of COVID, it has had some impact on the students' learning. And so we provide individual needs, MYP English, and small group individuals and societies, just to help with giving them that buffer before they move into the mainstream. And so this doesn't affect their levels at all, because we do follow the same course and topics and assessments as in the mainstream, but it's in a smaller class. So this year in year 7 for English, we have about 6 students, and individuals and societies, we have about, I think we have about 5 students. And so it really depends. But in terms of exam access arrangements for year 7 to 9 is informal, and we allocate as we receive information from the primary schools, or for some of the students, if they already have an educational psychology assessment report, then we look into that as well. But we also use this time to gauge whether a scribe is necessary or a reader is necessary, whether they do in fact need 50% or is 10% enough. Because when they get to year 10 and 11, we assess them formally, and that's where it's got to be just right.
Right. Okay, thank you. And a question, I think this may be from a Kennedy parent whose child receives some occupational therapy, is will that be continued when their child joins West Island School?
At the moment, we don't have an occupational therapist or a speech therapist who operates out of West Island School. So any therapies will be done outside of school time.
Okay, thank you. And for students that are a level of adjustment 3 and a level of adjustment 4, how many support sessions might they receive each week? Maybe just specifically within the IN department.
Okay, for students at level 3, 4, generally would benefit from small group English, a small group individuals and societies. So automatically they receive 8 support lessons that are taught by individual needs teachers. And then if they drop one language and they take S for S, that's an additional 3 support. And then in the mainstream, we offer 3 support lessons. So if they go into a science, we offer 3 support lessons. But if they need support in English, not English, in science and math, then a total would be 3 lessons. But if there are more students at level 2 that might need support, then it would be more lessons.
Great. Okay. And almost coming to the end, Gail, you're nearly off the hook. So in terms of the students that may need some speech therapy, is that something that we have available at West Island if a student is felt that they would benefit from that support?
We used to have a speech and language therapist who would come into West Island School and maybe based there for about 2 days. Because of COVID, that stopped, and some of the speech and language therapists have left Hong Kong as well. So it's been difficult to secure, but we can definitely look into that if it's easier for the parents and for the child to continue the speech and language therapy in the school environment, and we can look at that again.
Great. Okay, thank you. And probably a question for me from a parent that is asking about the timetable for their child. That is something that we will prepare towards the end of the summer holidays. It's very, very difficult to prepare them in advance because throughout the summer there is constant movement of children that are joining in year 7 and being withdrawn in year 7 for that August start. So the timetables realistically are available really from about a week in advance of your child starting, and they will receive them on their first day. But if they can be prepared and shared in advance, then absolutely we will prepare them and share them with you. Okay. Gail, any last thoughts, any tips, final things that you think parents would benefit from? I think we've finished the questions now, so we'll start to move to close our presentation.
I think the last thing is that for parents who would like a further discussion, just contact me, and I'm happy to meet you either face-to-face or on Zoom just to discuss it a little bit more. Because coming into secondary school, sometimes, you know, there's a lot to take in. So I'm really happy for you to contact me, and I'm happy to spend the time talking to you.
Great. And if
Thank you.
No problem. Thanks, Gail. And Jules and Shelby, if you want to come online. Hopefully you're still there somewhere. There we are. Okay. So parents, hopefully you're able to put a few faces to some names of staff that are going to be supporting your children as they join West Island School. Again, Dr. Wright heads up the IN department, and Shelby is the second for the IN department, and Jules is going to be your child's head of year. I really hope that you feel that you've found out a lot about the bespoke provision that we provide for your children. and that it's been really useful to hear. And thank you, Jules and Shelby, for answering all the parents' questions behind the scenes. BJ, you've been amazing as always for managing the webinar, so thank you to you. And some parents, just in terms of some final instructions in advance of Friday, the 2nd of June. So I am going to read off the script so I don't make a mistake, so apologies if you see my eyes moving left or right. So parents, you should have received a letter last weekend which just reminded you to drop your children at West Island for a 9 o'clock start. That does include Kennedy children, so that is a slight change to the email and the letter we sent out much earlier in the year. It's just a logistical thing. So everybody needs to be dropped off by all parents or helpers at West Island School for a 9 o'clock start. The day is going to end at 2:15, and Kennedy students, they will be escorted back to Kennedy School. So Kennedy parents, please only collect your child from Kennedy School unless they take a Kennedy School bus, in which they will be put on the Kennedy School bus. Everybody else, please collect your child from West Island School. Hopefully that's clear. If not, the letter I sent at the weekend just explains it. In addition, on the evening of the 2nd of June, there is an evening event which starts at 6 p.m. for parents, and snacks are going to be available. They're provided by the PTA, because I know we have a very active PTA department that wants to get to know you, and those snacks will be available for 5:45. In essence, the evening will be a general welcome. It'll be explanations about our MYP curriculum, if that is something you are not familiar with. And in addition to Dr. Wright's guidance tonight, some additional practical tips and suggestions, which I think you'll find helpful to help your child settle in. And also one that we are very aware of is how to support your child managing their tech and their mobile phone use. That evening should finish around 7:30. And again, the snacks. So if you're very hungry and you're dashing from work, you will be able to eat a bit of something before you head home for dinner. All of that information is in the letter, as I say, that I sent last weekend. If you haven't received it, or it throws up any questions for you, then please do let us know. And thank you for your time this evening. I can see there's one more question, but my mouse has stopped working. Can somebody tell me what it is, because I can't read it?
Can we bring our child too?
Oh yes, very good question, and that has been asked already. Absolutely, your child can come. The only thing that I would say is the children will have received all the information during the day on Friday, so it kind of will be repetition for them in the evening event. It probably will be quite a tiring day for them. So coming to another hour and a half of talks, I'm not sure that they would really welcome, but I leave that up to yourselves to make that decision. But I thank you for your evenings. Have a lovely onward evening, and I'll look forward to meeting you all with the rest of the team in front of you on Friday, the 2nd of June. Okay, thank you very much. Bye-bye.